this adventure is winding down. We've been here over a week and we've gone to a lot of great places like the Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon. We went to Los Angeles. We got to see the Queen Mary. We got to hang out with Adam and Jacob. It's been a great week. Today is our last day here on the West Coast for right now. Obviously we will be back very, very soon. Today though, for our final day, if you look right past the Las Vegas sign there, it's a giant hotel. It's the Mandalay Bay. Not that long ago, one of the worst terrorist attacks to ever take place on American soil outside of 9/11 happened right there at the Mandalay Bay. Today we're going to talk about it. We're going to tell the story. We're going to wrap up our adventure here to the West Coast. It's going to be a good one. The Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino is a 43-story luxury resort casino located right here at the northern end of the North Las Vegas Strip. Much like a lot of the other casinos, like the Delano there and the Luxor here, the Mandalay Bay is owned and operated by MGM Resorts. But on the night of October the 1st of 2017, a lone gunman named Stephen Paddock opened fire on a crowd of concert goers who were here for a music festival right here in this parking lot beside us. Stephen Paddock was the son of a man named Benjamin Paddock who was a bank robber. He was on the FBI's most wanted list between 1969 and 1977. He fired over 1,100 rounds all the way down onto the concert goers who were drinking and having a good time right there. When Mandalay Bay security guard Jesus Campos started his shift on that afternoon of October the 1st, he could have never known he would save thousands of lives and become a national hero before his shift would end that night. It was around 9:30 p.m. He was on his normal routine walk through the hotel when he received word that they had a door alarm going off on the 32nd floor. It turns out a nanny had left her door open to walk across the hall to another room and check on some children. Well, at the Mandalay Bay, if a door is open for long periods of time, it sends a door alarm signal to security, as it did that night. Jesus Campos can be seen getting on the elevator at 9:46 p.m., headed to the 32nd floor to check on the door alarm. Well, Jesus arrives, he exits the elevator, and then he hears what he describes as a drill or a jackhammer.
I thought it was drill noises.
Like drilling.
Drilling.
It was the massacre. It had just begun. Stephen Paddock was shooting down onto the crowd. There were over 22,000 people at the concert. So he starts heading down the hallway, thinking that it's some kind of power drill that he's hearing, when all of a sudden Stephen Paddock starts shooting through the door at Campos, hitting him in the leg. We will get back to how Stephen Paddock knew Campos was coming that way. Jesus, shot in the leg, dives into cover. He managed to survive his injuries.
Control, this is advising there are people down on stage 5. We have multiple casualties. GSWs in the medical tent. Multiple casualties. Control, be advised. Shots are coming forward. Coming from stage. Here, you have to have cover. No, come here. Hey, get behind cover. Can you see where it's coming from? No. I'm down! I got down! We're going down! Get down! You shoot first! Go to that wall! Pump that wall! Go! Get over the wall!
3 different times that night, Stephen Paddock stopped shooting on the crowd outside to fire at Jesus Campos and also an engineer, a maintenance man named Stephen Schock. The time he stopped firing on the crowd to fire at them allowed time for thousands of people outside to get to safety. Many, many, many more people would be dead had Campos not drawn Paddock's attention from the crowd outside. Now, how we got to that point of Campos being shot in the hallway and drawing Paddock's fire, it actually begins days prior. September the 25th of 2017, 6 days before the massacre, 64-year-old retired accountant Stephen Paddock checks in to the Mandalay Bay, and he's placed into room 135 on the 32nd floor. Now, he's a familiar face at the Mandalay Bay.
Stephen Paddock was a high-stakes gambler. He spent a lot of his money here in Las Vegas.
He's what the hotel would call a whale or a high roller. I mean, he was gambling hundreds of thousands of dollars regularly at the Mandalay Bay. So regularly, in fact, that most of the staff knew him by name. He was what they would describe the last person they would have ever thought to do something like that. Over the next 6 days, Stephen Paddock is caught on security cameras constantly leaving and bringing in luggage, which we now know was all of his firearms, but at the time, he just blended in with the crowd. Everyone in the lobby of the Mandalay Bay had luggage, and no one realized every time he left and came back, it was with all different luggage. The day of October the 1st, when the massacre happened, he left the Mandalay Bay for several hours. He actually drove out to his home outside of Las Vegas. He came back bringing in his last 2 bags of firearms. He went up to his room and he ordered room service, and he prepared to kill.
To this day, police still do not know his motive for doing it.
It was right around 9 o'clock p.m. Stephen Paddock steps out of his hotel room and screws in a bracket, locking the stairwell door right beside his hotel room. Then he goes out and wires up some cameras facing down the hallway. One of them was sitting on the room service cart that he had ordered earlier. That camera was how Stephen Paddock saw security officer Jesus Campos while he was shooting down onto the crowd, which caused him to stop and start shooting through his door at Jesus. After placing the cameras facing down the hallway, he locked himself in his room. It was about that same time at the music festival, country music sensation Jason Aldean came on stage. Jason was just on stage for a few minutes singing when Stephen Paddock began his rampage. Shots rang down onto the crowd below, and it's all caught on cell phone cameras who were recording the concert.
The musician Jason Aldean even gave an interview saying that he thought it was just a blown speaker, the popping sounds you hear from a blown speaker.
Yeah, so you know, when it started, it was just crazy. I was on stage, and our ear monitors that we wear just sounded like a guitar amp, or something that was just sort of crapping out, and I didn't really know what it was, and so it took me a while to realize it.
At first, people didn't know what was going on. They could hear the gunshots, but they didn't know that it was gunshots. They didn't know it was someone shooting down on it.
That's not real gunshots. What is it?
I don't know.
You can even hear some, they thought it was fireworks.
That's just a firecracker.
I know, but why would you do that?
There's people just running everywhere. Nobody knows where to go.
The chaos at the scene was unreal. People trampling over people, and everybody trying to take cover or run away as fast as they could.
Trampled if we don't go. Let's go. We're going to get trampled. Oh my God.
The echoes of the gunshots were heard all the way down the strip. It also caused a lot of confusion because people were calling 911, telling the police that there were shooters up and down Las Vegas Boulevard. The police thought at the time that it could have been a coordinated terrorist attack and there were active shooters in every hotel. It was a madhouse.
There's reporting a shooting at the Tropicana Hotel.
At the Tropicana?
Yeah. There's been a lot of confusion. We're not exactly sure where the shooting is.
There's an active shooter, possibly not confirmed, terrorist related, of 3 shooters so far.
We're getting reports of shots fired at New York, shots fired at Tropicana. We don't know if they're diversion tactics or not.
That's when security officer Jesus Campos and the maintenance man Stephen Schock come back into the picture. All right, so not knowing what was going on, Mandalay Bay maintenance engineer Stephen Schock gets off the elevator on the 32nd floor. He's also coming to check on the door alarm. Stephen Paddock sees this on the camera mounted on top of the room service car. He again stops firing down onto the crowd to turn around and shoot through the door to try to hit Stephen Schock, which once again allowed thousands of people to escape to safety. Well, before he could shoot Stephen Schock, Jesus Campos grabs him and gets him out of the way and behind some cover. He then used Stephen Strong's phone to call police to let them know that he was the security officer and the shooter was here at the Mandalay Bay and not up and down the strip where they were getting all the reports. That gave police vital information that helped in the massacre way faster than Stephen Paddock anticipated.
Hey, there's shots fired in 32135.
Police and SWAT swarmed the Mandalay Bay. Well, because of that action, the automatic gunfire just all of a sudden ended with one last shot. It was at that point the SWAT team took cover, expecting Stephen Paddock to open fire on the officers in the hallway, but it never came. A short time later, they used explosives to blow open Paddock's barricaded door.
Stand by for breach. Breach! Breach!
Everyone in the hallway needs to move back. All units move back.
Breach, breach, breach.
They found Stephen Paddock on the floor dead. He had shot and killed himself, knowing that the police were there to get him.
One down.
It ended the massacre earlier than Paddock wanted, and they know this because next to his body where he laid were stacks and stacks of loaded clips that were already prepared, sitting right next to where he was shooting from. There was more than 5,000 rounds of ammunition that were sitting there ready to fire. If it had not been for Jesus Campos and Stephen Schock, those 5,000 plus rounds would have been fired down into the crowd. There's also tons of heroes throughout the entire night. Strangers who saved other strangers, police who saved strangers. There were people who pulled up in pickup trucks or any vehicle that they had, cab drivers, you name it. They pulled up, allowed complete strangers to jump in, and then they would drive them to safety. Those heroes need to be acknowledged as well. We'll never know how many of them there were and all of their names, but if you're one of them, God bless you.
We have no control over the actions of evil people, but we're here now. Thank you.
Stephen Paddock killed 58 people. He wounded 422, and because of the panic of people dying around them, people were trampled over and stomped on. Another 851 people were injured just in the panic during the aftermath.
Now this is somewhat close to the angle that Stephen Paddock saw as he looked down onto the sea of people from his hotel room. It's as close as I could get, at least. Because of this horrific terrorist attack, security in the hotel casinos looking down onto public places has been beefed up big time. They also look at you closer if you want to stay in one of those rooms now. I mean, trust me, I know. Also, President Trump signed into law that bump stocks are now illegal in the United States. Although he has outlawed them in America, it's not going to stop the bad guys. I mean, if they want it, they can get it. It doesn't matter.
That's going to do it for this episode on the Las Vegas massacre committed by Stephen Paddock from the Mandalay Bay Hotel. I want to thank you all for watching. If you want to help support the channel, there's some links down in the description box below. Check them out. It's always much appreciated. Thank you all so much. It's our last full day here. We'll be getting up tomorrow and leaving, headed home so we can go see our family. I can go see Bella. We also have to go back to work. Back to reality. Thank you all. I'll see you tomorrow. I hope you have a great day.